He'll never change. He'll never change. Ever since he was 9, always the same. Couldn't keep his hands out of the cash drawer. But not our Jimmy. Couldn't be precious Jimmy. Stealing them blind. And he gets to be a lawyer? What a sick joke.
From the very beginning, AMC's Better Call Saul set out to answer a question. Can people really change? Being a prequel to the critically acclaimed series Breaking Bad, this is the question the show was founded on. And that's part of the true tragedy of its main character. We already know where this guy ends up. And despite how much we want him to make the right decisions, we all know exactly where he's headed. If you're not already familiar with it, Better Call Saul follows Jimmy McGill, a down-on-his-luck public defender trying to find his way in the legal world. Having come from a past of conning and defrauding people, he tries his best to remain on the straight and narrow. Despite his best efforts though, through a series of unfortunate events, he eventually falls down this path again, taking up the alias of Saul Goodman, a quick-witted criminal lawyer who will cut corners in any way he can to ensure his biggest payday. All of this does come at a cost, however, as through the course of the show he unintentionally causes his brother's suicide, the murder of his former colleague Howard Hamlin, and finally the divorce of his wife and partner in crime Kim Wexler. With the context of Breaking Bad, we know that eventually all of Saul's crimes catch up with him, forcing him to go into hiding as a man named Gene Takovic, a storyline that Better Call Saul occasionally cuts to parallel Jimmy's story. Any longtime fan of the series is well aware that the creators put a considerable amount of detail into the visual aspects of the show, to an extent that might go over most casual viewers' heads. Through the use of unique cinematography and stellar performances, the show creates its own distinct method of storytelling, oftentimes letting the dialogue take the backseat to hone in on its ability to portray how characters are feeling without words. One scene that demonstrates this exceptionally well is when near the back end of the series' final episode, Saul Gone. In this episode, Jimmy's cover of Gene Takovic is blown and he's taken into custody by the Omaha Police Department. At first being handed 2 life sentences, through the knowledge he's obtained in the criminal world, he's able to whittle this down to only 7 years. But during the aforementioned scene, in a shocking turn of events, Jimmy confesses to all of his crimes in front of the court reviewing his case, as well as his ex-wife Kim. The first element of this scene notable to most viewers is the attire that Saul chooses to appear in. He sports a brightly colored, almost glossy suit jacket and pants with a flamboyantly patterned necktie and dark undershirt. Already this is reminiscent of the colorful, tacky fashion choices Jimmy would make during his time working as Saul Goodman, even adding in the ribbon on his suit's left lapel that he would wear for much of this time. His ex-wife Kim's appearance is also significant, as for much of the time we see her throughout the series she is clean-cut and has a tight blonde ponytail, but at this point in the show appears in mostly dark clothing and has dark brunette hair and bangs. Her updated darker appearance could be representative of many things, but her guilt for playing a part in Jimmy's crimes is most likely what it's alluding to. Framing is an important device in the show's toolbox, with its use being more intentional than the casual viewer might think. In this shot we see Kim positioned behind some sort of banister with a circle and 2 lines through the middle, visually reminiscent of the crosshair in a gun. This shot is an excellent illustration of how Better Call Saul utilizes framing in its cinematography. Without saying a word and only through the use of unique camera placement, we're clued in that something bad might be about to happen to Kim. And with the uncertain nature of her fate in the show at this point, this only adds to the tension of the scene. Something that people with only a keen eye might catch is the visual callbacks scattered throughout the scene. All throughout the final episodes of Better Call Saul, we can see shots that are visually reminiscent of scenes from previous episodes, mostly pulled from many seasons prior. This could be done for a myriad of reasons, but is most likely to illustrate the stark contrast between 2 periods, taking a look at just how far Jimmy has fallen. This scene even starts off with a reference to a Season 3 episode where Jimmy gets arrested, sharing a similar camera angle and placement of actors. However, not all of these callbacks are used to illustrate Jimmy's descent. Near the back end of Saul's confession, he addresses his wrongdoings in regards to his brother Chuck. A major driving force in some of the earlier seasons of the show was Chuck and Jimmy's relationship and how Chuck's self-diagnosed allergy to electricity put a strain on and eventually destroyed this relationship. In Season 3, Episode 5 of the series, Chicanery, Jimmy exposes the illegitimacy of Chuck's ailment to the Bar Association, permanently damaging their bond. During Jimmy's confession in the final episode, however, he admits he only did this out of spite for his older brother, as well as coming clean about all the other ways he attempted to hurt him. The reason this is significant visually is because 2 shots in these episodes essentially mirror each other, the first marking the dismantling of the brothers' relationship and the second representing its possible redemption. An element of this series that often goes unnoticed is just how well actors can portray emotions through facial expressions. Being a show that plays into its quieter moments, oftentimes the climax of a scene will be a shot of a character's reaction to something, putting emphasis on how certain events affect a character rather than the event itself. This scene demonstrates that to the highest degree, having a variety of reaction shots, all putting the actors' abilities to perform subtly on full display. Better Call Saul has always been a show that prides itself on its use of lighting and cinematography, with this scene being no exception. With the show being somewhat handicapped because of its use of black and white in the final episodes, these scenes mainly rely on clever usage of lighting to get their point across. The show has often been compared to the film genre of neo-noir, a style of films that tell vulgar stories using moody lighting, often incorporating shadows to their benefit. However subtle it may be, this scene is no different, with Jimmy's surroundings getting brighter as the scene goes on, starting off with him against a nearly pitch-black background and ending with his back to a bright window. This could be interpreted in many ways, but is most likely representative of Jimmy expunging the alias of Saul Goodman and returning to his roots as Jimmy McGill. confessing all his wrongdoings and in turn being free of this negative force. Jimmy's future is left mostly up to interpretation by the end of the series. Receiving a prison sentence of 86 years, it's unlikely he'll see the outside world again in his lifetime. This doesn't mean all hope is lost for his character, though. In the little that we do see of him in prison, he seems to be adjusting well, even having a few friends. The true indicator of what's to come for him, though, lies in the final scene of the series. After settling in, Jimmy gets a visit from Kim, sharing a cigarette with her, an activity they'd often indulge in during their time as a married couple. Looking closer, though, reveals the light from the cigarette is the only splash of color we see in the post-Saul Goodman timeline, perhaps implying that Jimmy is still able to live a fulfilling life after his sentencing. Jimmy may be in prison, but ironically shedding the pseudonym of Saul Goodman has made him freer than ever before. But this still begs the question, did Jimmy McGill ever really change?
I don't know, fellas. What can I do to make it right?